All right, I think we're just about ready to get started. All right. Well, hello and welcome to the session on school social work, essential skills, services, and advocacy. We are so excited that you're here. I'm Erin McGohan. I am a district level certified school social worker in Bullitt County Public Schools. I serve our 13 elementary schools, focusing on attendance and removing barriers to learning. This is my 5th school year. Prior to that, I worked for CPS in Jefferson County for 9 years. I'm also on the board of the Kentucky Association for School Social Work. And now I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Lori Lazari. I am currently the Child Guidance Specialist at Arlington Elementary. I've been over here for over 20 years. I also have held a position as Family Resource Center Coordinator and School Social Worker. So I have held most of the positions you can as a school social worker within the Fayette County schools. Prior to that, I worked in a school-based mental health therapy program at 7 counties in Louisville and worked at the University of Kentucky Department of Psychiatry. I am also an adjunct professor at the University of Kentucky, and I recognize a lot of names of my former students. Glad to have you here.
Hello, my name is Lori Vogel. I am also a child guidance specialist in Fayette County, school social worker, which that's just kind of a fancy name that we have in Fayette County. But I have been a school social worker. I was a Family Resource Center coordinator for about 2 weeks, but it was a great job, loved it. And I formerly worked for Bluegrass Regional as a school or outpatient school therapist and a outpatient therapist there at Child Guidance. Also worked at a spouse abuse center in Lexington, which is kind of where I got my start and learned my love for social work. I've been in the school system now for 21 years and I've loved every minute of it. So glad to have everybody here today.
All right, so just as a reminder, if you are in need of CEUs for today's session, please put your name in the chat. Also, don't forget to submit your evaluation form at the end of the day. The objectives that we're going to go over today are, number 1, to increase understanding of the training, expertise, and knowledge that school social workers bring to their schools and communities. Number 2, to understand the role advocacy plays in helping maintain and grow the profession in Kentucky. And number 3, to explore what it means to be an agent of change within macro level advocacy. So why do we need school social workers? Children today are increasingly victims of many social forces that negatively affect their role as students. The family is in a state of change, and until it becomes stabilized, children's unmet physical and emotional needs will continue to interfere with their ability to learn and adjust in school. School social work is a specialized area of practice within the broad field of the social work profession. School social workers are trained mental health professionals with a degree in social work who provide social services related to a person's social, emotional, and life adjustment to school and/or society. School social workers are the link between the home, school, and community in providing direct as well as indirect services to students, their families, and school personnel to promote and support students' academic and social success. School social workers bring unique knowledge and skills to the school system and the student services team. School social workers are hired by school districts to enhance the district's ability to meet its academic mission, especially where home, school, and community collaboration is the key to achieving student success. So now the question is, how did you become a certified school social worker? Only master's level social workers can specialize in school social work. You can specialize while in your master's program, or you can apply as a postmaster's applicant after graduation. Once you've completed the program requirements, you can apply for your certification. In Kentucky, there are 2 universities that offer a specialization in school social work, the University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville. Both programs will prepare master-level social workers to assess families and students and provide interventions to help overcome barriers to learning. If you have questions about these programs, you can contact either Janet Doss at UK or Debbie McMurray at U of L. Their emails are linked in this presentation or can be found on the university websites. So I'm going to use the Kent School of Social Work as an example to explain the process for obtaining your school social work certification. So how do you apply? Well, this is the shortened version because there's a lot more forms to it, but if you're new to Kent School, then you will apply at the time you complete your graduation application. If you're a current MSSW applicant, then you'll complete the specialization current student application. For both new and current students, you'll also need to submit an updated resume and a brief 3-page essay discussing your interest in the specialization, your need for professional development, and your potential contribution to the specialization if you're selected. If you're a postmaster's applicant, then you'll need to apply as a Kent non-degree postmaster's student. You'll also have to apply to the specialization by submitting 2 letters of recommendation from someone who is familiar with your work with children and can assess your potential to successfully complete the specialization. You'll also need a statement articulating your experiences with children and families and your career goals relevant to the completion of the specialization. You'll need an updated resume and an official transcript that confers your MSW. For University of Louisville students, the specialization is integrated within the Kent School curriculum. Regular and advanced standing students will be recommended for school social work certification through the Educational Professional Standards Board. It's also known as the EPSB, upon completion of your program requirements. Students are required to take classes that will enhance their knowledge of school social work. These classes will help prepare the social worker to be an effective agent of change in the school setting. Once you've completed those requirements of the specialization, then you'll be ready to apply for certification. Your university will require a portfolio to be submitted to the program coordinator at least 1 month before graduation. Portfolios should document your knowledge and performance of 10 of the NASW standards for school social work practice and be consistent with the commitments and dispositions outlined in the College of Education and Human Development Conceptual Framework for Teacher Education Programs. Once your portfolio has been approved by the program coordinator and your official transcripts reflect your final grades or your degree conferred for a recent graduate, then you'll be able to apply for certification through EPSB. The portfolio requirements can be found by visiting the Kent School website or by snapping a photo of the QR code shown on the screen. If you're applying as a postmaster's student, the requirements are similar, but it's best to take a look at the checklist provided on their website. After all program requirements have been met, you can apply for your certification. To apply, you'll need to log in or create your EPSB account. Then from their website, you're going to complete the CA1 form and have the program coordinator at U of L check for errors and make corrections. Once you're ready, you'll submit payment and load the CA1 form and official transcripts to the website. After that's been completed, then you'll email the program coordinator a copy of the CA1 form, your transcript, and the updated curriculum planner that you completed when you applied. The program coordinator will then forward your email to the College of Education certification officer and enter the online system to approve you for certification. For more information about the University of Louisville Kent School of Social Work, use your smartphone to snap a photo of the QR code shown on your screen to visit their website. And for more information about the University of Kentucky College of Social Work, snap a photo to visit their page so you can learn more about their program as well.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the school social work model that is a nationwide model that was developed from 2011 to 2013 by a group of practitioners and people who are in the academic world. Now, as we go through this, I want you to remember the overarching theme of a national model is that it is paradise. So keep in mind that this is best practices, and this is what it would look like in utopia. So as we go through, I'm going to add a few of my own comments and observations after being in the world of school social work for as long as I have. So basically, the rationale for our model is to provide a consistent framework so that people who are hiring school social workers and who are practicing school social workers have kind of a consistent model to follow. Of course, we want to make sure that we're always providing a high level of services and use research-based practices. So by looking at this model, it kind of leads us to wanting to do that. Also, we are always governed by the NASW Code of Ethics. So of course, within whatever model we use, we want to make sure that we are ethically practicing within the confines of our job description and our professional duties and responsibilities. The other thing too is that it helps us to promote a positive school climate and culture, because people look to us to be the positives in our school buildings. And so we want to make sure that we're always participating in avenues that are part of that school climate and culture. So you can see that the advantages and purpose is to pretty much provide a consistent level or model to represent all of our school social workers. Okay, so as we know, we are busy people as school social workers. And what we have to remember, though, is the role of school social workers is going to be very dependent on your district, on your school, on your state, and how it is defined within your school building is probably the most prevalent way that your role is going to be shaped. Your school will, and how it looks at mental health specialists and how it looks at school social workers is going to be your frame of reference. If you're asked to, go and clean the bathroom, I vacuumed once. So basically, when you are in your school building, you are going to be part of a team and a community. So you want to make sure that as a guest in the building, because we are guests, we are school social workers who are acting in an educational world. And while we're a very integral part of that world, we also have to be respectful that we do not always have 25 kids in front of us, and we have to be very respectful of what the staff and students need from us. So when you go into a school building, you are going to get that sense of what your purpose is and how your role is going to be defined. Now, of course, we are there to provide multi-tiered programs. We're there to do progress monitoring. We're there to help students who need mental health support, and we are there to do crisis management. We are everything, okay, to everyone. So we want to make sure that we are working within the confines of collaboration as well. So we are a great link to our homes of our students, and to the community that surrounds our school. I'm really lucky to be a part of a school that is considered a neighborhood school. So we have lots of community support here, a lot of community partners, and we are very lucky that they call us. But a lot of times in your role as a school social worker, you have to reach out and call them. So you have to be very cognizant of the community partners that are available to you and how you can integrate them into your school setting. The other thing that we talk a lot about is how are we part of policy? Because being part of policy is a very important role that we have within the school. So a lot of times we're asked to be on committees and we roll our eyes and they're like, oh, I don't want to be on that committee. Why do we have to do committee work? But what you bring to the committee is you bring that sense of justice, you bring ethics, you bring professionalism, and you bring that compassion to remove barriers for all the students. So therefore, you want to be part of those committees at your school, even though you're not sure how you fit. It's a great team building experience, and it's a great way to bring that positive reinforcement to removing barriers to a group of people who are going to implement those policies, no matter what it is that you're going to write and be part of your school. Now, of course, we have district and federal policies that we have to implement within the school setting, but we too can implement those policies with a sense of integrity and a sense of ethics. All right, next one, Lori. Okay, so we've pretty much talked about this one. We are also part of our database decision making. So we want to make sure that we are part of data decisions. We want to be make sure that we understand the data that is used within our school. And even outside of just looking at data that has to do with academics, or I'm sorry, data that has to do with attendance and behavior referrals, we tend to be caught up in that data, but we want to make sure that we understand the academic progress of our students and how that is impacted by the barriers in education. So I guess our number one practice is to provide that evidence-based education, behavior, and mental health services within the confines of our school setting. So we are going to have a direct service component. Now, we are very lucky here in Lexington and Fayette County to have also hired district mental health specialists. So it's very important that we work together as a team and that we don't duplicate our services. We're bringing that unique expertise into our child and family work, but we're also going to have a lot of support in most of our schools, and if you're lucky enough to have that support, where you're going to work as a team with your school psychologist and your family resource center coordinator and your district mental health specialist and your school social worker and your school counselor. So you want to make sure that you're working together to provide the best possible services and to reach as many students as that you can possibly reach. So we're going to implement those multi-tiered programs. We're probably going to be part of response to intervention and multi-tiered systems of support. We're going to be expected to monitor progress of our students and, hey, are we doing a good job? And we need to look at how effective we are and evaluate our practice almost daily. Lots of self-reflection. Number two, we talked a little bit about this. We're going to promote that school climate. We're going to be part of teams. We're going to be part of committees to look at how we can better improve our student learning and teaching, and remove those barriers that prevent kids to be the most successful that they can be. One way we're also going to be part of this, and I haven't mentioned this yet, is you're probably going to be part of a PBIS team, which is positive multi-intervention levels of support, which is not exactly what that stands for. But anyway, you'll be asked to be part of that team that's going to promote a positive school climate. And that will be a tier 1 team that is going to look at your expectations and the rules of your school and help to implement that positive learning environment from the custodians all the way to the principal. Okay, and then we've also talked about maximizing community-based resources. So you want to make sure that you're interacting with those community-based resources and bringing them into our school. You will work, if you have a family resource center coordinator within the school, you'll work closely with the family resource center coordinator in order to also bring in those community resources and get support for our families from community-based resources in order to provide basic needs as well. So we just want to make sure that we're always collaborating interdisciplinary and that we are consulting, and we never want to work in isolation. Our roles are not a role where you can shut the door and be done with everybody and emerge at the end of the day and be like, okay, I'm going home. We are an integral part of teamwork. So don't ever think that you can go into a school social work job and sit in your office and stand alone, because that is not where that's not how it's gonna happen. Okay, so basically we've already talked about most of these. So just kind of as a review, the key construct is that we're gonna be that home community linkage. A lot of times when teachers do not have contact with parents, or there's a relationship that hasn't been cemented there, then we're going to be the ones that they turn to for home visits and to establish a relationship with a parent. A lot of times we are able to make that connection and bring that parent into the school setting better than some of the other staff in the building. Once again, we have to operate under the NASW Code of Ethics and the school social work standards and bring that to no matter what team we're on. And we need to be advocating for ethical and professional behavior from everyone in our on our staff. Advocacy, Lori's going to talk about that in just a minute, about advocating for students and families. And then I've said a little bit about data-based decision-making already. It is very important that you understand the data within the confines of your school building, and be an important part of being able to apply that data. Also, you want to make sure that you're doing research-based interventions. There has been quite a move toward making sure that we're implementing research-based interventions versus operating by the seat of our pants, because we are using those to decide tiers of intervention, whether students might need a special education referral and receive special education services. So we are into documenting those research-based interventions. And most of your school buildings will provide those types of interventions if you're lucky. And so that you have some curriculums and things that you can use to provide those mental health supports within the confines of best practices. All right, next. All right, there's Lori.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can be an advocate and some of the things that our organization has done. So for school social workers, you know, we advocate typically for our students. So we're kind of on that micro level of going into the classroom and asking teachers, you know, kind of advocating for our students if they're having difficulty or problems. And we advocate for our students with their families. You know, if there is a student that needs services, and many times parents are kind of leery of different things that we want to try. So sometimes we have to be advocates for our students, even with their own families. We also become advocates kind of on the meso level within our school building and in with our district policies. A lot of us, or all the schools, are changing into trauma sensitive schools. And this is a policy policy change that our districts are all going through right now. And social workers are vital to be part of that because we have been trained in trauma. I really like this quote by former President Barack Obama, because we have to be the person who does the change. We can't sit around and wait for change. We have to be the person who seeks that change. Why do we need to be an advocate? Because we are the people who provide that voice of humanity to our district leaders, our state leaders. We tell them about how these policies that they are creating are working or they're not working. Are they helping our families? We tell them about resiliency and how our families, our students are resilient, and the things that they can do to help, and promoting equity, which is a very big one, and just trying to help get our students on the same level playing field as other students in our buildings are very important. So this is basically sums up why we are advocates and what we want to advocate, why we advocate. We have looked at the NASW Code of Ethics, and of course, being an advocate is very important to us. If you look at this, you see that we're here to advocate for the vulnerable and oppressed, for issues of poverty, unemployment, discrimination, social injustices. And these are all things we see in our schools every day. We're there to ensure access to needed information, services, resources, and ensure quality for all. We're helping them make decisions that help our students every day. So, you know, we always go back to the NASW Code of Ethics, just as everyone else does. You know, from the beginning, the vision, social workers dare to speak what has not been said. We dare to challenge some of those powerful people. And sometimes those powerful people are the teachers that we have to talk to about a student. Teachers are wonderful people, but sometimes they get caught up in their emotions, just like anybody does. So sometimes, you know, we have to go in and talk to the powerful, and those can also be our legislators. Sometimes our legislators and the powerful they fail to protect the innocent and vulnerable. And, you know, social workers refuse to stay silent. We are the voice. And so we are the people who care, and we need to go in every day with that feeling and that opinion. Also, I wanted to point out that there is the School Social Work Association of America is our national body, and they have supplemental social work ethical standards. And these don't really go into macro, but they do go into advocating for students in the school and community. So I just wanted to point that out, that there are additional ethical standards. So yay. And SWAL does have a national lobbyist, which is really helpful because they are able to advocate for us on the national level, as well as your state organization, which is KSSW. We are more of the state level. So communication is very important when you are lobbying, or advocating, I should say, because I don't really lobby. I'm not a licensed lobbyist. But in social work, you know, we have to have that effective communication. We have to go out and try to improve services at the agency level, in our building level, and for state policy and national policies. So either as a leader in your profession or a professional developing your leadership skills, we all are out there working to advocate for our students and work trying to reach those wide range of stakeholders that are important to us. Failure to communicate can result in negative outcomes and missed opportunities. And we had some missed opportunities in our organization here that we'll talk about in a minute. So social work macro advocacy looks at what are equitable resources for students in schools. That can mean non-discrimination. That can mean working with students with disabilities. Threats to the current educational system are why we are out there advocating. We're advocating for more funding, not just for mental health, but for all the programs that our students need to be successful. School violence is another threat to our current educational system. So we are out there, you know, trying to advocate for sensible gun laws and things that will help our students stay safe at schools. We're making stakeholders aware what students need from a social work perspective, and that's not something they hear often. So that is helpful for them to hear from our side of things, what would be helpful. So funding for mental health, that's something that, you know, we're hit really hard this year. Another one is that I think for the future are these peer-to-peer suicide prevention programs that help students work through problems through more large-scale school programs. So that is something that we're hoping to work on next year. The impact of national and state policy on our students. So, you know, there were some LGBTQ policies in the former administration that were harmful to our students. So our national advocate or lobbyist was working on that. Immigration, that's a huge issue in our schools right now, and our students are scared at times, and that's a national issue that our national advocate is working on. Curriculum decisions. I know this sounds funny, but there are states that are mandating that schools have certain curriculums. You know, one of those is the 1619 project. Some states are saying that you're not even allowed to talk about that. And as social workers, with, you know, social justice being important to us, that's a big thing. And then on the state level, we worked again with this Kentucky Senate Bill 1, which I'll talk about in just a second. So protecting our students by making policymakers understand who is a mental health professional in schools and what mental health services look like. So that's something that we met with a lot of our legislators this last year to help them understand who is it in schools that should be working with students and who shouldn't be. So those are some reasons why on the state level and the national level that school social workers advocate. So one of the big things that I talked about just a little bit with Jamie was the 2019 School Safety and Resiliency Act that basically stated that students have to be at a ratio of 1 to 250 to a school counselor. And while this sounds like it was a good idea, it completely left out school social workers and school psychologists. which if you think about it, if you have to put all your funding into counselors to be at 250 to 1, who's going to be left out? So that really called us to action. And that's when we really knew that we were going to have to get serious about advocating at the state level. So after lobbying key members of the General Assembly for a year, we were able to be included in the fix for Senate Bill 8, which there were other issues that also needed to be fixed. And apparently that's a pretty normal thing. So, if a bill is passed and there's something in it that is harmful to you, speak up, because this is exactly what we did. We had to get out there and talk about what the problem was with Senate Bill 1. So although it still wasn't perfect, it did include school psychologists and school social workers as a school-based mental health service provider. And this is something that has been at the national level for years, but Kentucky had not adopted it before. And this is really kind of the first time school social workers were identified as anybody in a school, actually. So one thing that we've been working on this year, or last year also, was that the General Assembly, in order to try to help fix that 250 to 1 ratio, they added $7.4 million into the general fund for schools to help hire school-based mental health service providers. Originally, it was not called school-based mental health service providers, it was called school counselors. So we were able to get that changed, and it was really interesting because we were meeting with one of the chairman for the Appropriations and Revenue Committee, and he said, "Oh, all you have to do is fill out this form if you want something changed." And we looked at each other like, "Wow, that's all we needed to do." But I'm sure that he probably wouldn't have told us about the form if he wasn't thinking that was a good idea. But anyway, this funding, it was changed. We were added to it, and the funding was given, but it was divided between 171 school districts, which is great, but it turned out to be about $43,000 per district, which, hiring somebody for that is kind of difficult. So this year we are working together with the school psychologists and the school counselors to try to increase this funding from 7.4 million to 9.8, so that each district would be getting roughly $57,000. So that's a little bit easier to hire a master's level social worker or other mental health provider for that, because that also has to include your benefits in that, so retirement, things like that. Another success that we had last year, which I am very passionate about, was Senate Bill 42. And it was kind of interesting because we kind of had this idea, but at the same time, Senator Denise Harper Angel put forth a bill that required student badges, 6th grade through college, to have 3 emergency hotline numbers on it: the suicide hotline, the sexual assault hotline, and the domestic violence hotline. And it was a roller coaster watching this go through the General Assembly, but it was so exciting to see that people really listened. We had bipartisan agreement that this was a good bill, and it was something that was very exciting to see happen. And so my son started the University of Louisville this year, and the first thing I did was so excited to go get his student ID, because here it was on here, and it was a moment for me. So so my son is annoyed with me because now every time he looks at his badge, he thinks of me. But anyway, if there's anybody out there who has a picture of their ID, now this is probably just going to be if you were a first-year student at the school, but if you don't mind, share that with me. I would be grateful, because I've not seen the one from any of the other schools, just the University of Louisville. So if anybody would like to share, please feel free. So one thing this year that we've been trying to do as well is working with the Department of Education, and that's another group that we have had to advocate for. Kentucky's going to receive $928 million for the elementary and secondary schools emergency relief fund. And this is going to also be split up between the 171 school districts, but it's going to be based on their Title I funding patterns. So basically Title I means that students who qualify for free and reduced lunch are calculated within each district, and that's kind of how the money is going to be divvied up. But still, that's a lot of money. And the districts are going to be the ones who decide what this funding is going to be for. It's very flexible. It does say that it can be used for mental health supports, and it doesn't have to be used until September of 2023. So we're really hoping that we're going to be able to advocate with some of the superintendents to include this. And we've actually talked to the Commissioner of Education, and we've tried to provide some guidance for that. So what can you do today? Here's what you can do today. You can call the Legislative Research Commission, like Jamie was talking about, and you can leave a message for the House Appropriations and Revenue Committees, just the House and Senate. All you have to do is call this number, and you don't have to talk to anybody about anything like the specifics. You just call and you say, hey, I would like to leave a message for House A&R and Senate A&R. And you just tell them that we need more money in mental health. We need more money in school mental health to combat the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're very worried about our students coming back. They have not been, at least in my district, they haven't been in the building since the first group started to come in yesterday. And, you know, we have no idea what's happened to them. I mean, it's been a year almost since our kids have been in school. So this money that the state could provide for that increased funding for school mental health could really be a lifesaver. Okay, so when you call, you'll just leave your name and your where you're from, and they'll leave the message for them. And the other thing you can do is call back and leave a message for your House and your Senate member, telling them the same thing. Tell them that we need more school-based mental health support. What else can you do? Well, you can contact your local school board and ask them to use this ESSER money to fund mental health professionals for now, during summer school especially, and when students return in the fall. I mean, we are going to need all hands on deck. And, you know, right now, I feel like we're going to be stretched really thin when we get back in school, because we're also going to be having to help try to deal with keeping students socially distanced and making sure that they're going to the bathroom without being in contact with other students. It's kind of a big, it's interesting. We also, like I said, we're implementing trauma sensitive schools, and we need that funding. It could be used to train staff. Suicide prevention programs, like I spoke before, there are several. One of them that we're getting ready to start at our school is called Sources of Strength. And it's a school-wide program that it doesn't mention suicide ever really, but it's just building up that knowledge about mental health throughout the school. Age-appropriate sexual abuse prevention programs. There's a bill actually right now that is in the General Assembly that talks about this, but for some reason everybody always gets afraid when they hear the word sexual abuse prevention. So tell your districts that that money can be used for that. Social emotional curriculum for all levels. This is something as well. School boards are really important. They hold the key to lots of things. And you know, if more school boards, and we've been working with the Kentucky Association for School Administrators, if they would know more about what school social workers can do, then I feel like we would have many more across the state. So that's something that we could also do too, is to call and say, hey, we need more school social workers, not just school-based mental health providers. But the most thing we need to come out of this is that we have to be the change that we see in the world. So if we want change, then we're going to have to be the ones that go out to do it. So these are a few more of the supplemental documents that we talked about. The standards for school social work practice is something that NASW has. The Code of Ethics, of course. SWA's Ethical Guidelines series is something you can look at. It's called the School Social Work Association of America, and they have a website that has lots of great information on it about school social work. Also, the School Social Work Practice Model Brochure is on their website as well as evaluation frameworks. So these are just some of the resources that we use today. Again, this is the SWA website you can look at. A few more citations. And I guess right now we can open it up to any questions. If you have some questions, then feel free to put those in the chat, and we will try to answer those for you. Will we be receiving a copy of this PowerPoint? Yes, I think that they're going to put it on the, we'll find a way. I know that they're going to post some things, so we'll make sure that it gets sent out. Oh, good. Thanks, Susan, for feeling it was informative.
There's a question about organizing parents or concerned others to get into advocacy. I'd like to say that we formally do that, but informally, we usually try to get a hold of our smaller groups and reach out to our KASSW members to go and advocate with, to have their immediate circles to call. During the as Senate Bill 1 ordeal, I made copies of the phone number and passed it out to every staff member here and asked them to call. So we do that informally to answer that question.
There's a question, do you have any insight if any of these funds, CARES Act, et cetera, will be around long term, or if it's likely that it's just temporary? ESSER is part of the CARES Act. Well, yeah. And so from what we have learned, it's there, those funds are available until September 2023. So that's a good, 2 years.
There's one about this plans for collecting data on effectiveness to retain COVID-19 funds. We, I would assume that they will use at the district level some of the data that we have to collect based on contacts that we have with parents and students. And we put those into an Infinite Campus format, and they pull that data for many reasons, including showing effectiveness of having a school social worker, a counselor, a child guidance specialist, etc. in our district. I'm sure that there'll be other plans that are going to be implemented to follow that money so that we can prove that we need to retain those funds.
There's a question, is there anyone advocating for schools to allow their social workers to get certified to become certified school social workers? My school district does not seem to understand the importance of being certified. Unfortunately, that's one of the things that we didn't love about Senate Bill 8 was that it did allow just anybody to be involved. And a lot of districts are switching their money around, and they're using the money for the school, they're using their school safety money that they were supposed to buy mental health workers with that were master's level. They're kind of switching it around and paying for other things with it and then saying, oh yeah, we got somebody. And then they're taking some extra money. Like schools love to do this where they switch the pots around. We have been trying to talk to superintendents about the importance of actually being school social work certified, because that makes you a certified employee. So a lot of districts are hiring social workers as classified, which means you don't have quite the same job rights and your retirement system is a little different. So yes, we are attempting to work on that as much as we can. It's just kind of hard for them to understand our system. The whole dual certification thing really blows their mind when you say that, oh yeah, we're EPSB certified, but we can also have a license in the state of Kentucky. So that gets confusing. So we've been trying to go to the School Administrators Associations to talk about this. This year, we're hoping to have a workshop during KASA. So it's a fight that we continue to try and fight for you.
There's a question about 60 hours and you enter as a rank 1. 60-hour master is typically paid at rank 1. Yes, that is correct. What are some ways to advocate for the school teachers and their need for mental health services as well? I tend to informally be the school staff support for that, with referrals out to our employee assistance program or other referrals as needed. Many times my staff will just come and ask for referrals. I do agree that there probably needs to be more advocacy for that, because it is important that especially in the times of pandemic, they need mental health and self-care support as well. Lori and Aaron might have a different.
Now we have, I think sometimes just getting to that one administrator and talking to them about, just bringing this up and reminding staff that they have access through their health insurance to the EAP programs. Right now, at least recently, our insurance allowed you to do telehealth and teletherapy. And I've known people who actually did therapy on their computer through our EAP program. And that's, a great resource to be able to have.
Those are the only questions I see, but if you have any more, you can unmute. Yes, Kayla, we would love to do that. I went to high school that had no school social worker. Is there a way we can try to convince them into getting a school social worker or a social worker in general? That was part of our advocacy for the Senate Bill 1, as trying to be a part of that 1 to 250. A lot of times it comes down to funding, which we keep advocating for more. Want to?
If there's anybody that wants to ask a question, you all are able to now.
What have we been doing during COVID? A lot of Zoom. I did all of my social emotional learning curriculum classes on Zoom. Quite a treat to get 4th and 5th graders to undo their cameras in order to participate in social emotional learning. So, and then we saw children virtually. Our district mental health specialist continued her services virtually through that. So lots of Zooming.
Yeah, we also did lots of home visits because we have a lot of students. I work in a middle school. I'm sorry, I didn't say that earlier. And we've had lots of students who have just given up, disappeared. And so lots of home visits for sure. And, just it's sometimes hard because parents are like, oh, come on in, and, we're like, no, I'm sorry, due to the pandemic, we're not allowed to do such. So, I'd spend, several days just going out and looking for students who were not showing up or who were minimally doing anything. So that was something that is something that I'm still doing.
Yeah, that's the same in my district too. A lot of home visits for students that have not been participating. A lot of Zooms with parents to try to get them more involved, understand that their student is not participating. A lot of parents don't realize that. They just think they're getting on and doing it. A lot of food deliveries and referrals for like outside, mental health services and other services.
Yeah, we also really increased our holiday assistance this year. We usually do a lot, but this year in conjunction with our youth service center, we did a lot this year. So many days of traveling out and taking food to people and presents and things like that. Well, it's great to see everybody here today. Don't forget to put your, Aaron, what were the procedures again for CEUs? Could you remind us?
Yep, just put your name in the chat, and then also there was a evaluation form that was emailed out to everyone. So if you can just print that out, fill it out, and then you'll scan it back to Brenda Rosen, and her email address was provided in that email that you got today with all the registration, Zoom links, and the schedule for today.
Thanks, everybody. It's great to see everyone, and a lot of names that I recognize in there. So glad everybody was able to come today.
Somebody wants to send the PowerPoint and recording because their practicum advisor wants to watch.
Okay.
Darian Roberts.
I think they're going to put it on the YouTube channel that she talked about. So we'll be able to it'll be there.
Of course, they bring the access test